You're listening to Mental Toughness Training, an optimal living interview with Jason Selk and Brian Johnson.
Hi, this is Brian. Welcome back to the Optimal Living interview series. Today I am thrilled to be chatting with Jason Selk. Jason is one of the world's leading mental toughness training experts. He's the mental training coach for the St. Louis Cardinals and one of the world's leading peak performance consultants and coaches. His tagline on his website, I think, is the coolest tagline I've ever read, which is the relentless pursuit of greatness. I've been deeply inspired by his 10-minute toughness and executive toughness. And he's just extraordinary. So, Jason, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat today, and I'm excited to explore some great big ideas.
Well, Brian, thanks for the kind words. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Well, let's jump straight in. Let's just start from the top. What does it mean to be mentally tough?
Wow. I think that's $1 million question right there, and I've thought about it for the last 20 years. I still, to this day, think about it and wrestle with it. I've got notes all over my office. What is mental toughness? And if I had to answer today, and this has been a pretty consistent thought of mine for the last 15, 20 years, it really is the mind's ability to deal with adversity. Again, I think, to use a baseball analogy, it's really easy to be mentally tough when you're ahead by 3, 4 runs on the scoreboard. But when it's the bottom of the 8th inning, bottom of the 9th inning, and you're losing by 2 runs, 3 runs, I think that's where you really get to see whether a person has mental toughness or not. So a clean definition, mental toughness is the mind's ability to stay focused on solutions, especially in the face of adversity.
And I can't think of many more important traits than that, eh?
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's talk about some of the fundamentals that go into toughness training. And you mentioned the books are distinct. So I highly recommend both 10-Minute Toughness, which is, would you say that's more geared toward athletes? Obviously general performance, but a little bit more toward athletes?
Yeah, without a doubt, when I wrote 10-Minute Toughness, I was just starting with the St. Louis Cardinals. So this was back in 2006. In fact, it was my first year with the team. And that book was written 100% for athletes. In fact, it really was written for the pro athletes I was working with. And it still is, to this day, the mental training plan that I use with the pro athletes that I work with. Now, one of the things that I didn't anticipate was that it really works for athletes even younger ages. And I'd say that really kind of your start age for 10-Minute Toughness would be about 12 years old. And that's really based on the development of the brain. You could certainly take little smaller bites with someone younger, but I really wouldn't try to have them doing mental workouts or some of the more detailed things in 10-Minute Toughness. But certainly 10-Minute Toughness was written for the athletes. And then executive toughness, which I wrote 3 or 4 years later, is more for people in the business world, more for general life.
Yep. And I'll say, just as a non-athlete, I got so much out of both. And 10-Minute Toughness, I think, really works for anyone who aspires to create an optimal life and actualize their potential and as you say, pursue greatness. But let's talk about some of my favorite ideas from each of those. I want to start with, I was joking with you that before I do these interviews, I take a deep breath, and I always say to our guests, I'm going to take a deep breath and come back on, and we'll be recording. And I jokingly said to you that I'm going to do your breath because your style of breathing is what I've integrated into my life, and I've shared with our community quite a bit, that you're the one who inspired me to do the 6 + 2 + 7 breath. Can you talk to us about the importance of breath as it relates to mental toughness?
Yeah, absolutely. And here's what we know, that when a person enters a performance, the body's natural response is to have the heart rate elevate. Now, this is oftentimes referred to as performance anxiety. It has a negative connotation for the right reason, because what happens, the natural response to performance, so whether you're about to start an interview on the air, or whether you're about to move from the practice tee to the first tee box, or whether you're about to throw the first pitch in the game, the natural response, the way your body biologically gets ready for that, is it increases the heart rate. Now, the problem with that is that as your heart rate increases, your mind disables itself. And again, it goes back to fight or flight. It's completely biological, but it is very, very negative and counterproductive for performance to have your brain disable itself. You move away from the ability for detailed thought. And I think over the years, especially as the level of performance increases, it becomes so much more important to keep our brains operating optimally. So what you want to do to control that performance anxiety or natural response to performance is control the biology, control the heart rate. Taking a centering breath, that's what it's called, where you breathe in for 6 seconds, hold for 2, and breathe out for 7. What happens is you breathe deeply enough that air gets into the diaphragm, and that has a biological controlling effect on your heart rate. Thus, you can enter into the performance and still have your biology intact as well as your mental capacity. Again, I'll give you an example. How many times has it happened where a person's on the driving range and they're hitting it long and straight, and then they walk, 100 steps over to the first tee box, and all of a sudden, it's not quite as easy. What happens is, as you're taking that walk over, your mind's realizing you're about to go into performance, elevates the heart rate, throws the timing, the biological timing of your swing off, not to mention has a negative impact on the brain. So it's so important to use those centering breaths before you enter competition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you use the centering breath as a cornerstone to your 10-minute workout, to your 100-second workout. Um, and it's literally how I start every one of my meditations every morning. Every time I lay down for kind of a nap slash meditation in the afternoon, I start with this sequence of 6 + 2 + 7. It's just such a perfect way to drop in and to focus your mind as well, right? By actually getting the count to a certain level of precision, you're also focusing your mind so it's not wandering around into other areas. And to match that with the biology has been huge. So love that. Let's talk about self-image. And in executive toughness, you talk about how it's like a thermostat, and it's really going to kind of dictate how we perform. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it's a really important concept that a fellow by the name of Maxwell Maltz identified back in 1960. He wrote a groundbreaking book called Psycho-Cybernetics. In Psycho-Cybernetics, Maltz identifies for the first time a concept called self-image. And self-image is essentially the way a person believes he or she will perform. It's very closely related to self-confidence. For all intents and purposes, we could say it is self-confidence, but it's really focused on how you believe you're going to perform, how you believe you're going to do, what you think you're capable of. Now, what Maltz finds is that the person will not outperform, nor will they underperform their self-image for long. And I know when I was first reading Maltz's work, I thought this doesn't sound based in science. Well, here's what we know: self-confidence. Any sports psychology, performance psychology textbook will tell you this. Self-confidence is the number one variable for performance. All right, so Maltz absolutely was the first one to really start to show how important this self-image / self-confidence is. And I'm going to say it again. A person will not outperform, nor will they underperform their self-image for long. And here's the kicker that people want to be aware of. You develop your self-image by what you say to yourself consistently about yourself over time. Unfortunately, Brian, most people, because of something called PCT, and another really strong influencer on that is the Perfectionist Mentality. PCT is problem-centric thought. Our brains are built biologically to focus more on the negative than the positive. It's easier to focus on the positive. All right, so because of PCT and because of the Perfectionist Mentality, most people talk to themselves about themselves in a very negative way. Thus, the self-image is going to be low, much lower than it potentially could or should be. And again, remember, Maltz says a person will not outperform nor underperform their self-image for long. So it really underscores the importance of people going to work on their self-image, getting it where it could and should be by learning how to talk to themselves the right way in a more positive, focused, directed manner.
So powerful. And of course, you spend a ton of your time in executive toughness helping us cultivate our self-image. Can you give us an idea that we can kind of take home today to help us cultivate that?
Yeah, so self-image, there are two rules I really try to work with people on when it comes to self-image. One, really start listening to how you talk about yourself, to yourself, and to others. And I think what most people do is they say, yeah, I'm just joking when I say negative things about myself. I tell you this, here's the rule, people I work with. Moving forward, never, really work on never saying another negative thing about yourself, whether it be in your own head or out loud, even if you're joking. It doesn't do you any good. In fact, it does all kinds of negative things. It's, again, impacting one of the most important things, which is that self-image. So that's the first thing, is really start taking inventory of how you talk about yourself, to yourself, and to others. And I want it to only be positive from here on out. The second thing, I teach people to create something called an identity statement. An identity statement is really just a personal mantra that you mentioned, the mental workout. I have people say it to themselves at least once a day in that mental workout. I'll give you an example of an identity statement. I'll give you mine. What I tell myself twice a day in the mental workout, and I wouldn't ask people to do anything I don't personally do myself. I certainly do mental workouts every day. I say this as my identity statement. I outwork the competition every day. I am the most effective performance coach in the country. I experience true love as a husband and father. Now, again, that may be nowhere near the truth, and the research on positive self-talk, on affirmations, on the identity statement is really the further from the truth, the more impactful it can be. So don't let your identity statement be based on what is your reality right now, but more importantly, what do you want it to be? I know when I first started in the sports psychology world, I wasn't even out of graduate school. I didn't even have an office. And I was saying to myself, I'm the most effective sports psychologist in the world. And, it couldn't have been further from the truth. But somewhere along the way, a year and a half, 2 years into it, I started to believe it. And once I started to believe it, look out. I think that's when my stock really started to rise, and you could maybe make an argument that I am one of the top sports psychology consultants out there at this point. So again, let your self-image be based on desire, not necessarily your reality, but where do you want it to be? And then really go to work on it, because again, you're not going to outperform it, nor are you going to underperform it for long.
And I love how you build in both well, first of all, I appreciate you sharing, because transparently just kind of sharing what your identity statement is, it's inspiring. And I love the fact that it combines both kind of the process and the product side of things, of you outwork everyone else and you are the best at what you do, but that combination, I find really inspiring.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really good point there. And it's one of the rules I talk about in both 10-minute toughness and executive toughness. When you're putting your identity statement together, you want to have it so that it has a part that's really somewhat process-oriented or characteristic-oriented, something you can control. I can control how hard I work. And then the other side of it, just like you said, then we want it to also have a result-based component. That's the piece where you see, I'm the most effective performance coach in the country. Again, a process piece and a product piece.
Well, let's talk about that, because when I shared my thoughts on this book in the context of my philosopher's note work, I said that I think your analysis of the process and the product is if not the best one, absolutely one of the best descriptions of it. Can you walk us through on a high level product vis-a-vis process goals and how you approach that with your clients?
Sure, but let me first say this, Brian. It's very nice of you to give me credit, but I would have to say that I learned what I know about product and process from what I consider the greatest coach of all time, John Wooden. And, I might have maybe put my own spin on it, but this is really philosophically his number one concept. This is why Wooden had so much success, this is why he'd tell you, is he taught his players and he himself learned to focus more on process than on results. Okay, so here is really kind of your definition. You have two types of goals. You have product goals. Product goals are result-oriented goals, and the time frame associated with the product goal is usually 12 months or less. So an example of a product goal, if you're in the business world, it might be I want to do $1 million of production. If you're a pitcher, it might be I want to have a sub-3 ERA this season or win X amount of games. Those would be examples of product or result goals. And an example of a process goal. And the process goal is what it takes daily to achieve the results. An example of a process goal, let's say in the business world, might be make 6 proactive sales calls each day. If you're a baseball player, it might be make sure I spend 20 minutes film study each day of the opposing team's hitters. It might be make sure I'm doing my strength and conditioning workouts every day that they're assigned, doing every assignment that the coaches are telling me to do. It might be making sure I'm doing my mental workouts and success logs daily. Those are more from the mental side of things. But again, here's what I found, and this is what Coach Wooden really tells everybody, is normal people focus on product goals. Normal people focus on those result goals. What highly successful people have learned, it's not going to be natural, it's going to be totally abnormal, but what the highly successful people have learned, whether it be in the sports world or the business world, and I'll tell you, the sports world is actually much further ahead than corporate America on this one. It surprises me, but it is without a doubt true to my experience. Normal people focus on results. The highly successful have learned to focus on process. And I'll just kind of fundamentally, from a science point of view, why that's true. It's what I call the paradox of the product goal. Paradox of the product goal is when a person focuses on the result, they're actually taking themselves further from it. Okay, and again, it's totally normal to do that. But by doing it, you're making it much more difficult to achieve the result. And let me explain the science behind it. This is what we know. The human mind can only fully focus on one thing at a time. And there might be some people out there saying, well, this guy really knows nothing about multitasking. And that's not the truth. I do. I totally understand the research. And the research is your mind cannot multitask. You cannot fully focus on more than one thing at a time. It's not biologically possible. Now, you can focus on more than one thing at a time without full attention. But at the high level of performance we want to be performing at, you can't afford to perform less than your full attention, your full focus. So again, learn to focus on what causes the results, and that's the best way to produce results. I'll tell you a quick story about this. So my business partner, a guy I do a lot of corporate work with, his name's Tom Bartow. Tom, he was literally best friends with Coach Wooden up until the day he died. It was Tom's Uncle Gene who took over for Coach Wooden at UCLA back when Coach Wooden stepped down. Tom and Coach Wooden then became best of friends through his Uncle Gene. Anyway, Tom had asked Coach Wooden not too many years back, maybe 10 years back, he said, Coach, when you were in a game, like in the heat of a game, what were you focused on? And Coach Wooden said, Tom, I was looking to see if my guys were running their cuts in straight lines or if they were running cuts in banana patterns. Tom looks back at Coach Wooden and says, Coach, you mean to tell me, greatest mind in all of basketball, greatest coach in the history of coaching, during a game, you're not worried about the score. You're not looking at the scoreboard. You're watching to see if your guys are running their cuts in straight lines or banana patterns? He looks back at Tom and says, Tom, let me be clear. Winning is important. And the best way for us to control winning is if our guys are running their cuts in straight lines. Tom looked a little puzzled. He said, Tom, what's the shortest distance between 2 points? He says, well, Coach, it's a straight line. If my guys are running their cuts in straight lines, they're going to be a little bit faster than the opponent. If we're a little bit faster, the scoreboard's going to take care of itself.
So good. Oh, so good. We could talk for a weekend about all that. um, to bring it back, and I appreciate your humility in attributing, the essence of the idea to Coach Wooden, and I really like the way that you unpack it of articulating. Okay, so practically speaking, what that means is we have a product goal, as you defined it, of something that we can achieve within 12 months, and then the process goal is the stuff we're going to do on a daily basis that will help us do that. And in the book, you talk about identify your product goal. You have three different domains in our lives, and then for each product goal, identify the three most important things you're going to do process wise on a daily basis, such that the outcome is a natural byproduct. And the way you weave that together, I think, is the true gift, in the insight and the addition. So thanks for sharing that. And I'll just give an example of what I do. So I when I read that, one of my product goals is to complete a certain number of philosophers notes in 2015, 150 of them. I'm on almost 110 now. And so I need to do a certain amount, and that requires me to do certain things. I identified, look, I'm going to read and or work on a note before I hop on the internet every morning, 7 days a week. It's just what I do. And simple process goals we can translate are just so big. So I'll move on from there. And thank you again for the distinction. And let's talk about goals and writing down our goals and the power of that. You shared some. I still shake my head in awe at the stats that you threw around the power of writing our goals. Can you share on that?
Yeah, I'm blown away by the power of this too. David Cole, he's a prominent researcher out of Virginia Tech. He did some really good work on the importance of writing goals down, writing it down. And let me throw some of these numbers at you. Here's what David Cole said. Writing down is 9 times more impactful than not writing down. That's 900%. That means that if you write your goals down, you are 900% more likely to achieve them than if you just keep them in your head. Now, let me throw a couple more stats at you. What Cole also found is only 10% of the people out there actually are writing their goals down. That blows me away. And again, I think what most people then think is, well, I should write down my product goals. And my response to that would be, yes, you should, but that's just getting warmed up. What you absolutely must do is also write down your process goals. Because remember, normal people focus on result or product goals. Highly successful people have learned, it's not normal, it's a learned trait, they've learned to focus on the process goals. So if you're going to write the goals down, don't stop with just the results. Just like what you had said, you wanted to do 150 of the philosopher's notes. And then that would be your product goal. But the process goal would be, I think what you said was to get up every day and read before you turned on the internet, correct?
Yep, very simple. Yep.
So writing down the fact that every day you're going to spend X number of minutes reading before you turn on the computer, that's an example of writing the process goal. And again, writing them down, as simple as it sounds, makes you 900% more likely to actually achieve them.
Nuts. And then you, of course, have your success logs that people can find on your website. Let's just give that out real quick. We'll do it at the end as well. But where can they find those success logs?
JasonSelk.com. There's all kinds of stuff on that website. And one of the things, and you brought it up, those success logs, and I'm going to tell you, those success logs are still, to this day, the success logs I use with the pro athletes I work with and the business people I'm coaching. Mm-hmm. Those success logs have proven to help people win World Series, national championships, Olympic gold medals, significantly increase business production year over year. And here's what I think most importantly, they're going to help you to be a happier person. They're going to help you to be a better husband, a better wife, a better mother, a better father. See, that's the stuff to me. I mean, I think it's great that I help and have been fortunate enough to be able to work with people in the pro sports world and high-end executives. It's gratifying to be able to help somebody throw that fastball a little bit faster, a little bit more consistently. It's helpful to, it's rewarding for me to see people are making more money after working with me. But the stuff that really gives me gratification is knowing that they're losing weight, they're healthier, that their marriage is better, they're a better father, they're a better mother. That's the stuff that, in the end, that's the stuff that I'm going to feel best about. So those success logs, those are the exact success logs highly, highly successful people across the country and now even the world are using to help keep their minds focused on the right stuff.
So good. Yeah, and just to go back to wood and just simplicity, those are not particularly complex forms. It's very straightforward. Here's your product goal, here's your process goal. How'd you do? Right? But it's consistency on those fundamentals that dictates the success we're going to have. Talk to us about, you mentioned it briefly, PCT, which is problem centric thoughts. And then you juxtapose that with RSF. And in both of your books, results, what is that? Result? No.
Relentless solution
Relentless. That's
focus.
right. Relentless solutions focus. So good. And you talk about that a ton in your books of just relentless solution focus. Can you talk to us about the importance of that?
I will, and you brought up the word simplicity. You've said it a few times, and I have this quote in my third book. I got a third book coming out here in just a couple of months, but this is a quote from Albert Einstein. It says, the 5 levels of genius. You ready? Level 1, smart, intelligent, brilliant, genius. 5th level, simple. And that's from Einstein. I love that. And again, I think that's what I've learned, hanging around. I've been really lucky again to be able to hang around with these really smart, successful people. The people who are most successful, they try to keep it simple. They try to keep it simple. So to the idea and answer your question in very simplistic forms, I would call PCT, problem-centric thought, the definition of mental weakness. It really is, it's a biological tendency that every one of us is born with. It's biologically normal for us to focus on problems or negativity. And I think that right there is the most pure definition of mental weakness. The biological tendency to focus on negative or problems. I'll give you an example of PCT. The most valuable resource known to our species is not cash, it's not gold, it's oxygen. All right, now, when is the last time you thought to yourself, this is great. I've got an abundance of the most valuable resource known to my species. You see, your mind doesn't naturally go there. Now, compare that with when's the last time you thought to yourself, I don't have enough money. I don't have enough love. I don't have enough respect. I don't have enough, you fill in the blank. You see, that's that PCT biological tendency to focus on what we don't have, on the negative or the problems. All right, now, again, the complete opposite of PCT is RSF, relentless solution focus. And again, we talked about this earlier, it's within 60 seconds replacing all negative thought with solution-focused thought. Again, it really goes back to that definition of what mental toughness is, being able to focus on solutions in the face of adversity. And again, we know we're going to focus on problems. It's natural. But what mentally tough people have learned to do is shift. Once they are aware they're focused on a negative or a problem, they very, very quickly shift over to the solution. And the tool I try to teach people that's going to help cross that line, going from PCT over to RSF, is you just simply ask yourself and force yourself to answer this one question. Here's the question. Anytime you catch yourself focused on a problem or being negative, force yourself to answer this question. What is one thing I can do differently that could make this better? What is one thing I can do differently that could make this better? Just by the semantics of the question, the wording of the question, by the mere nature of forcing yourself to answer, you've shifted over to that RSF type of thinking. Now, let me real quick explain why it's so important. What we know is, biologically, when you allow your brain to focus on problems, your brain releases neurotransmitters. Those neurotransmitters biologically cause you to feel like garbage. They significantly limit your intelligence. They significantly limit your creativity. Biological. Nobody can get around it. But the second you cross that line, the second you move from focusing on the problem over to the solution, not finding a solution, not necessarily finding perfection, just searching for a solution, your brain now releases a whole new set of neurotransmitters, and those neurotransmitters biologically cause you to feel much better. They significantly increase your mental capacity, creativity, intelligence, and memory. So the key is you've got to very quickly, and I try to use the rule of 60 seconds because that way you can stay out in front of those negative neurotransmitters. If you can go from problem to solution within 60 seconds, those negative neurotransmitters don't start getting into your bloodstream and screwing your head up. So it's going to be easier. The faster you get over there to the solution, the easier it will be because you're not fighting against the biology. The sooner, the faster you do it.
It's awesome. And the more you practice it, the more that becomes the grooved pattern and the new default response, right?
That's exactly right. We can retrain the brain to be more focused on solutions than problems. Neuroplasticity, we can retrain this. And answering those success log questions is the best training we know right now.
Yeah, it's awesome. And now it's funny because I was going to ask you to articulate the +1 game and focusing on, you make a great distinction of focus on improvement, incremental improvement over perfection. Because too often when we're in that PCT problem focus, we're thinking about everything that's wrong and we think we need to solve all of it. And you make the great distinction of you don't need to solve all of it. What's one thing I can do differently that could make this better is a heck of a lot more empowering, right?
It is, and even just 1 inch of improvement. What we know, and it really kind of ties into that perfectionist mentality, what happens is a person has a problem, they try a couple of solutions, and it doesn't get them to complete resolution. It doesn't cause perfection. And then what happens? People quit. They give up. And that's the true definition of failure is when you've quit, when you stop trying. And what we know is those people who succeed the most in life are the ones, it's been called all kinds of different things, grit, emotional resilience, I call it mental toughness. Those people that have the most success are the ones that stay in the fight and refuse to quit. I think there's a very powerful quote. I think it's, I'm going to get the wording a little bit wrong, but I think Muhammad Ali said it's hard to beat a man who refuses to quit. And it's so true, but that perfectionist mentality, when you're trying to solve the whole thing in one solution, you get discouraged because it wasn't perfect, and then you quit. And when you quit, it's over.
Yeah.
So just start focusing on improve it by 1 inch, improve it by 1 inch each day. Chip away at this thing. You'll be surprised where the human spirit can take you in terms of success if you refuse to give in.
Inspiring. Well, that was a quick 30 minutes. We covered a ton. I appreciate you and your wisdom. I like to wrap up these chats by asking the same question, which is if you could share one piece of wisdom with someone passionate about optimizing their lives, what would that one piece of wisdom be? And it might be something we discussed. It might be something outside of this context. But what would that one piece of wisdom be?
It's such a great question. And I know for me, so I'm biased on this. For me, when John Wooden taught me about process goals, that I should not only on a daily basis know my process goals, but focus on my process goals, and here's the big one, evaluate my success with the process goals. That right there was a major, major turning point. I mean, it really, I think, took me from a position of feeling like I wasn't in control in life to I now feel like, for the most part, I'm in complete control. And life may throw curveballs at me, and that's where RSF comes in. But fundamentally speaking, if a person can learn to identify their process goals, to on a daily basis focus on and attack their process goals, and then evaluate their success on whether or not they did their process goals, not on results, but only on process, I think what happens is you put yourself in the driver's seat for success.
It's powerful. Thank you, Jason. Where can people learn more about you? I'll just give the shout out with, again, 10-Minute Toughness, Executive Toughness, Amazon, wherever you get books. Highly recommend them. Check out our Philosopher's Note and TV to learn more. But they're just amazing. What's your new book that's coming out?
It's called Organize Tomorrow Today, and I co-wrote this one. It's the first time I've co-written a book with Tom Bartow, the person I mentioned earlier, who was John Wooden's best friend. Tom was a tremendous, tremendous success in the business world, and he's probably one of the top business coaches out there right now. He's one of my closest friends, and like I said, he was best friends with Coach Wooden, which that just kind of blows me away. But that'll be available November, December on the website. Best way to find out more information about any of the books would be jasonselk.com. jasonselk.com. All the books are on there, and Organize Tomorrow Today. We're about to go into pre-sale, so you'll be able to order those here before long. Anything people need from me, I don't hide from people. I'm here to help. So on my website, you can reach me. You can reach out to the staff, and they'll get questions, and anything I can be doing to help people, I'm all in.
I appreciate your generosity and your wisdom and your commitment and relentless pursuit of greatness. It's inspiring.
Brian,
Thanks so much.
I appreciate you. I think you're making a real impact, so keep doing the great work you're doing. I had a chance over the last day or so to do a little homework on you, and you may not be giving yourself credit. Make sure you do, because you're doing some really good things, and I'm sure you're making some major, major impacts. Keep it up with what you're doing as well.
I appreciate that. One masterpiece day after another, right?
That's right.
Let's do this.
Good being with you.
Likewise. Hi, this is Brian. A lot of people don't know all the stuff I do beyond these free videos I share on YouTube, so I thought I'd do a quick video to give you an overview of our membership program that you can get access to and get a ton of other stuff. So here's a quick look. $10 a month, join the Optimal Living membership program. You get instant access to 250 philosopher's notes on some of the best optimal living books out there. Old school classics, positive psychology, modern stuff, mindfulness, peak performance, purpose, neuroscience, wealth, etc. And what you may not know is that in addition to the PNTV episodes, I create PDFs on all of these great books. So 6-page PDFs. Let's take a look at one of them. Joseph Campbell. You want to figure out how to live your hero's journey? Well, this is a great place to start. I basically pull out my favorite big ideas, riff on them, connect them to other books and other ideas, and help you apply this wisdom to your life today. That's what the PDF looks like. Again, we have 250 of these on all these different great books. And then I record those PDFs as an MP3. So you can listen to that MP3 while you're on a walk or working out or doing some errands or whatever. That is Philosopher's Notes. A lot going on there. And then in addition to Philosopher's Notes, you get access to Optimal Living classes, Optimal Living 101. Idea here is that all those great teachers come back to the same big ideas again and again and again. I distill those ideas into classes. Super practical, fun, inspiring classes ranging from Habits 101, Confidence 101, Getting Stuff Done 101, Meditation 101, instant access to all those classes. And then future classes include Relationships 101, Energy 101, Purpose 101, Business, Goals, etc. Those are our full-length classes. And then I create micro classes, 2 to 3 to 5 minute little bursts of wisdom on my favorite great ideas from these great books across the domains that you want to optimize in your life. So we have dozens of these so far. I create 50 new micro classes every month and 10 new Philosopher's Notes every month for $10 a month. So we're blessed to have thousands of members who are enjoying the program and sharing some incredibly kind words with us. And super simple, $10 a month, cancel anytime. Would be honored to be a bigger part of your life. And I appreciate your support. And here's to optimizing and actualizing.